He rushed to carry her luggage while I stood there, my hand pressed against my aching stomach. He didn't even look at me. The man who once swore he'd never let me face pain alone walked past me like I was invisible, but I didn't say a word. I just smiled faintly, hiding the storm inside, because I knew, the truth always finds its way home. Asterisk. The airport that morning buzzed with motion and noise, wheels rolling. Voices overlapping, screens flashing departure times, but I felt frozen in time. My body hurt, but not as much as my heart. Armin was a few steps ahead, laughing lightly as he adjusted the strap of Rita's suitcase. The same arms that once lifted me when I twisted my ankle were now busy with someone else's burden. My chest tightened as I watched him lean toward her, listening with interest. Smiling in a way that used to be reserved only for me. Asterisk. I wanted to look away. I wanted to stop caring. But love doesn't stop on command, it fades slowly, painfully, until the silence inside becomes deafening. Asterisk. I had met Armand 6 years ago at a design conference. He was ambitious, confident, and disarmingly gentle. He said I reminded him of sunlight through rain, something rare, something worth protecting. Together we built dreams, small and big, nights filled with sketches, laughter, and cheap coffee in our tiny apartment. He'd draw the plans, I'd color them. We were a team in work and in love. But then came Rita. She joined his firm as a junior designer, full of energy and ideas. I didn't notice it at first, the long meetings, the secretive calls. I told myself he was just being professional. That's how love blinds you. You keep forgiving what shouldn't need forgiveness. Asterisk. A month ago, I found out I needed minor surgery. I was scared, even though it wasn't life-threatening. Armin promised to be there, said he'd take care of everything. But the night before the flight, he said, Rita's schedule changed. She's flying out tomorrow too. I'll just drop her first, then come to you. Asterisk. It sounded harmless enough. But that morning, watching him hold her luggage, watching him forget that I even existed in the same space, I felt something inside me quietly die. I didn't call out to him. I didn't ask for help. I just kept walking, dragging my suitcase, the pain in my side flaring with every step. Asterisk. Rita's eyes met mine as she turned toward the check-in counter. She saw the look on my face and smiled a small, victorious smirk, the kind women wear when they know they've taken something that once wasn't theirs. Armin didn't notice. He never noticed anymore. Asterisk. When she finally disappeared into the boarding gate, he turned to me, his tone casual, as if nothing had happened. You should have called. I didn't see you there, he said, taking my suitcase now. Asterisk. I managed a soft smile. You never do anymore. Asterisk. He blinked, confused, but said nothing. That was the worst part. It wasn't anger or guilt, it was indifference. He didn't care enough to ask what I meant. Asterisk. Days passed after my surgery. He didn't visit the hospital except once, briefly, bringing flowers and a distracted smile. I have a meeting, he'd said, but I'll call you later. The call never came. Asterisk. I healed physically, but something in me remained sore. I told myself maybe he was just stressed. Maybe things would get better once this project ended. I still believed in us, even when he didn't. Asterisk. Then came the award ceremony for the firm's new design project. The one Armand and Rita had spent months on. I had been part of it in the early stages, back when Armin asked me for ideas, and I had given him an entire campaign concept, drawn from my sleepless nights. He'd told me it wasn't strong enough. I believed him, but that evening, as I entered the grand hall, wearing the same black dress he once said made me look like midnight, I realized just how wrong I'd been. Asterisk. The stage lights glowed warm and golden as Rita took the microphone. This project is special, she said, smiling proudly, because it's built from passion, collaboration, and vision. She turned to Armin, eyes soft with admiration. Thank you for believing in me. Asterisk. Applause filled the hall. Armin smiled at her, the kind of smile that used to make my heart flutter, but now it just made me feel empty. Asterisk. I froze as the presentation screen lit up behind them, showing my design, my concept, my color scheme, my typography, my slogan. Every detail was mine. The campaign I had poured myself into had been stolen, repackaged, and celebrated in front of hundreds of people. Asterisk. I didn't cry. I didn't storm the stage or accuse anyone. I simply stood there, clapping politely, my lips curved in the smallest, coldest smile I could manage. My silence was no longer pen, it was power, because while they had stolen my idea, they had no idea that I had proof. Every draft, every time-stamped email, every file saved under my name still sat in my laptop. Asterisk. When the event ended, I walked out before Armin could find me. That night, I packed my things. No confrontation, no tears. Just a letter on his desk. Asterisk, you forgot to see me, Armin. But one day, you'll remember what you lost. Asterisk, the next morning, I moved back to my mother's house. She didn't ask many questions. She just hugged me. The kind of hug that reminds you not all love hurts. I started freelancing, taking small projects online, pouring all my pain into art. Slowly, my designs began getting noticed. A company shared my work. Then another. Within months, I was collaborating with clients from abroad. My inbox filled with offers. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Asterisk, meanwhile, I heard things about Armin and Rita through mutual friends. Their project, though initially praised, had started to crumble under scrutiny. Deadlines missed. Investors unhappy. The glory they had stolen began slipping through their fingers. Asterisk, then came the call that changed everything. A leading creative firm reached out to me. They were launching a campaign centered on authenticity in design. They wanted me as their lead designer. It felt poetic, the same world that once ignored me now inviting me to take center stage. Asterisk, and when I asked about the sponsors, my heart skipped a beat. It was Armand's firm. Asterisk, I accepted, not out of revenge, but out of closure. I didn't plan to humiliate him. I just wanted him to see what I had become without him. Without his help. Without his validation. Asterisk, the night before the event. I stood by my window, watching the city lights shimmer like scattered stars. I thought of him, of us, of everything we could have been if he had only looked at me instead of through me. But those thoughts didn't sting anymore. They were just lessons. Asterisk, sometimes, love ends not because it wasn't real, but because one person stopped showing up. And when that happens, silence becomes the only language left. Asterisk, I didn't know what would happen the next day. All I knew was that I would walk into that hall, not as the girl he ignored but as the woman who found her voice in silence. Asterisk. He looked at me like he was seeing a ghost. The crowd went silent as my name echoed through the hall, the same hall where he once ignored me for her. And when the screen behind us lit up with the truth, his whole world fell apart. Asterisk, the night shimmered with bright lights, camera flashes, and polite laughter. It was the annual Creative Awards ceremony, an event filled with people who once whispered my name only as a forgotten designer. A silent shadow of Armin's team, but not tonight. Tonight, I was the guest of honor. As I stood near the backstage entrance, the host's voice boomed through the speakers, announcing the final segment of the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the mind behind the campaign that changed our perspective on originality and truth. The truth speaks. Asterisk, I took a deep breath, straightened my blazer, and stepped into the light. Asterisk, gasps rippled through the room. People who once turned their backs on me now clapped with awe. I could see their surprise, their admiration, and then I saw him. Armin. He was standing in the front row, wearing that same confident suit, but the ease was gone from his face. The moment our eyes met, the air between us grew thick. His lips parted slightly, disbelief clouding his gaze. Rita beside him froze to her expression, a mixture of shock and fear. Asterisk, I walked toward the podium. Graceful, the echo of my heels steady against the marble floor. Every step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself he had taken away. Asterisk, thank you. I began softly, my voice steady but edged with emotion. This campaign, The Truth Speaks, is deeply personal to me. It was inspired by the silent battles we fight when our voices are taken, our work is stolen, and our hearts are ignored. It's about how truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds its way back to the surface. Asterisk, behind me, the screen flickered to life. It displayed images, early sketches, prototypes, files with timestamps, my work. The same project that had once brought Rita applause and Armand pride. The very concept they had stolen and called their own. Asterisk, gasps grew louder. Murmurs filled the hall. People exchanged glances. And then came the final slide, an email chain from my account, dated months before Rita's version ever existed. It was irrefutable. Asterisk, I turned slightly, meeting Armand's eyes as I said, the campaign that changed lives began in silence, and that silence belonged to me. Asterisk, the crowd erupted in whispers and shock. Armand's shoulders stiffened. His face lost all color. Rita's confident smile dissolved into panic. She stood, her voice trembling. This is a misunderstanding. She's twisting the facts. Asterisk, but the moderator interrupted. All the data has been verified. The firm's internal audit confirms that the original drafts and copyrights belong to Ms. Mira Ahmed. The sound of that name, my name, rang through the air, like a verdict. Rita stumbled backward, her words dying in her throat. Armin's hands fell to his sides. He looked utterly broken, trapped between humiliation and realization. For the first time, he wasn't the proud, composed man everyone admired. He was just lost. I didn't look away. I didn't gloat. My silence was louder than any revenge speech could ever be. I simply smiled, calm and composed, and walked off the stage while the applause thundered behind me. As I reached the exit, I felt a presence behind me. Mira, he said softly. I stopped, not turning around. His voice shook. I didn't know. I swear I didn't. Rita said it was her concept. I trusted her. I turned slowly to face him. You trusted her over me. That was your choice. He ran a hand through his hair, desperation in his eyes. I was blind, Mira. I was stupid. I thought I was helping her. That she was honest. I repeated, a small bitter laugh escaping me. Do you remember when you carried her luggage at the airport while I stood there in pain? You didn't even look at me. That's when I realized you don't see people anymore. Armin, you only see what flatters your ego. He winced, the weight of my words hitting hard. I lost everything tonight, he whispered. No, I said quietly. You lost everything long before tonight. You just didn't notice until the light went out. He looked at me, eyes glassy with something that might have been regret. Can you forgive me? Forgive. Such a small word for such heavy damage. I took a breath, feeling the weight of years between us. I already did. The day I walked away, I forgave you. Not for you but for me, because I needed to move forward without the bitterness you left behind. He nodded slowly, tears gathering at the edge of his eyes. For the first time, I saw him stripped of pride, stripped of certainty. Just a man realizing too late what he had thrown away. Rita brushed past us then, eyes red, muttering something under her breath before storming out. Her career would end that night, hers by exposure, his by association. I turned away, ready to leave, but he called after me one last time. Mira, you were always the best part of me. I stopped, then smiled faintly without turning. And that's exactly why losing me broke you. Outside, the night air felt cool and clean. The city lights glimmered like they were applauding quietly just for me. For once, I wasn't walking away in pain, I was walking toward peace. Weeks passed. My campaign gained national recognition, then international. I was invited to speak at conferences, to mentor young designers. People began calling me the voice of truth in creativity. It felt surreal. One day, months later, I received a message. It was from Armin. Just for words. You were right, always. I didn't reply. Not because I hated him, but because some stories don't need sequels. Some endings are beautiful in their silence. I sat at my desk, surrounded by new designs, my laptop glowing softly in the dim light. There was a calm in me that I hadn't felt in years. A peace that comes only when you realize your worth doesn't depend on who sees it. Exists even when ignored. In that moment, I understood that my silence back then wasn't weakness, it was strength gathering itself, waiting for the right moment to speak. And when it finally did, it spoke louder than all the noise that had drowned me once. Arman had broken not because of exposure or humiliation, but because he finally saw me, the woman who never needed to shout, the woman who walked away with grace, carrying her pain like armor. I had rebuilt myself from ashes he never even noticed were burning. I had turned betrayal into purpose, and silence into success. Sometimes life doesn't give you revenge, it gives you recognition. It gives you peace. It lets the truth do what anger never could. And that night, when I closed my laptop, I whispered to myself with a soft smile. You carried her luggage, Armin, but I carried my destiny. Then I turned off the lights and let the quiet wrap around me, not as emptiness, but as victory.